Hello again, everybody. You're listening to the Total Basis Podcast. I am your host, Felipe. Over there with me is Sean Flannery. Sean, how you doing this morning?
We're trying to make it back. This is probably my first show in like 3 weeks, a month. Had the flu, had like pneumonia afterwards, and then our schedules couldn't line up. You guys did a Saturday show. Glad to be back. Still trying to kick whatever this is in the butt. It's no fun. But we're here, and the perfect medicine for a lot of things is baseball. And in the off season, we don't get a lot of baseball. The World Cup's going on right now, but we can kind of segue from World Cup to soon to be World Baseball Classic, and just baseball, because baseball's good for the soul, good for the heart.
Yeah, it's a hot stove, so it'll keep you warm. It's been pretty lukewarm lately here in Chicago.
Hey, Pirates are making moves now, and we literally have the Angels who have put together the ultimate Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man scenario with having Mike Trout and Hunter Renfroe on the same team. Because I'm not sure if you've ever seen them with the helmet on and like in the batter's box, but Mike Trout and Hunter Renfroe look like identical twins.
I just know that they're not equally productive, though. I mean, we've been waiting on Hunter Renfroe.
Hey, Renfroe the last 3 years has dropped the K rate. It's a pretty interesting move, but knowing the Angels, it'll blow up in their face. So there's that.
Yeah, I remember Hunter Renfroe was one of those prospects that he was gonna come up with the Padres, and they eventually gave up on him after like a year or two. But this is why you trade away those prospects, because you never know if you end up getting Mike Trout or you end up getting a Hunter Renfroe. And just, they end up on the Angels anyway. Just everybody's, what do you call it? Not flame outs, because that's not a good term for Hunter Renfroe, but just
not letdowns per se, because
mid-tier. Let's call him mid.
Which really isn't a terrible outcome, even if you are like a top prospect. Because look at Jurickson Profar. I feel like he's always the best example of he was this dynamo prospect, and he's never really filled that description, but he's been around the big leagues for a while, so and he's been a regular the last few years, so gotta give that to him.
He's probably the main one of the big catalysts of this past year. Remember, we looked at those Padres lineups this past year. It's basically Manny Machado and everybody else, but Jurickson Profar, because of his versatility, and he has a little nice bounce back. And the other claim to infamy with Jurickson Profar was he was one of the players that we did last year, or was it back in 2020?
That didn't have a barrel.
Nicky Lopez, I think, was on the list. Nick Madrigal and
David Fletcher.
David Fletcher's always on that list. And then Jurickson Profar was on there, and oh, come on, Jurickson Profar has to be the first one. And he wasn't. I think it might have been Nick Madrigal.
It was Madrigal, I believe. Or no, we thought it was Madrigal, but it was somebody else.
It might have been Profar.
There was one person before, I believe.
It didn't update on time, but then now last year Profar gets more barrels, and Madrigal is nowhere to be found. So, but yeah, you never know, right? With these players,
and Profar is going to get paid. This is his first time being a free agent, so it's not going to be a lot of money, but hey, nice 15-20 million doesn't sound half that bad right now.
People were giving up on him. People gave up on Jurickson Profar, he's never going to do anything in this league. And like I mentioned, he was one of the important pieces for that Padres lineup this past year, while Tatis was out for the entirety of the year, and Machado was basically putting that team on his back until they acquired Juan Soto and Josh Bell and Brandon Drury. So you never know. No, don't give up, but just temper. I guess the lesson here is you got to temper expectation, and you deal when the iron is hot. And
I feel like you definitely have to temper expectations when it comes to starting pitching, which I believe is where we're going to start off today, right, Felipe?
That's right. We are going to do the starting pitching thing today, and
the relief pitching, which is always a favorite and meaningful to our hearts.
Yeah, it's a staple to this show. Basically, you cannot have a Total Basis podcast episode without discussing the pitchers. Relief pitchers. Sorry.
I mean, that's where we are right there.
You also mentioned the World Cup. World Cup is up and running, and it's in the full steam ahead. Mexico is getting embarrassed out there. I'm ashamed to be Mexican.
At least you guys have birria, so
birria. Yeah, that's right. And Yeah, in the World Baseball Classic. I don't know if you heard, but we might meet up in Arizona, Austin, maybe Corey, and maybe some other people to look to see some of those teams on the West Coast, like Team Mexico and maybe Team USA. I mean, I'm not interested in Team USA. Maybe I am, depending on who's going to be on the team. Maybe if I'll see some of my fantasy players on the team, like like I
be like, I know that guy.
or back when was the last one in 2000? What, 19, 18, 17? Yeah, it must
17, I believe.
well,
yeah, 17 because Nemo played for Team Italy and got hurt.
Oh, geez. Well, for me, my guy was Christian Yelich. So Christian Yelich was the guy I was like rooting hard for, and when he made it, I'm like, yeah, I was like the biggest Christian Yelich homer that day. Every time I saw him, because why? He was on my fantasy team, and
There
most importantly, he was on my keeper league. So I'm like, yeah, time to get Christian Yelich a name for himself. And then Adam Jones like stole the show.
Yeah, per the usual.
For the usual, Adam Pac-Man Jones. Anyway, but we are here to talk about starting pitchers.
Who you will likely not see any of these guys in the World Baseball Classic because it's just simply too much of a risk.
Oh, so. Melvin was talking about Julio Urias definitely playing for Team Mexico. And that's
okay, I could see that, but in terms of the preeminent like Team USA arms never show up. I went back and I looked at the 2017 roster of pitching, and it was like, oh, you would laugh. I mean, like Tyler Clippard. It was a lot of reliever. It was Tyler Clippard, Daniel Hudson, I think, was on there.
Hey, those guys are pretty good back then.
The starting pitching was frightening. If you continue, I will find that roster just so we can laugh.
Well, we talked about if Julio Urias does not make it for Team Mexico, then Team Mexico is going to get just blown out here because Urias had a decent season. And I have this spreadsheet spread into like 3 or 4 different parts, and we started with the traditional 4x5 heroes. So for those who play rotisserie baseball, 5x5 traditional leagues, it's saves, wins, ERA, whip, and strikeouts. Obviously, we're not doing saves for starting pitchers, but we are going to focus on wins, ERA, whip, and strikeouts. And those are supposedly the more traditional numbers, even though I think whip is more of a newer statistic out there, but somehow it has been absorbed by some of the traditional people. If you ever get into these arguments or discussions and debates on Facebook and social media and sports message boards, somehow whip has become this de facto traditional number that people can hang their hat on as to why traditional stats are better than the advanced stats. Like whatever, whip, walks, hits, per innings pitch. That's pretty darn near, but we'll give it to them. But Julio Urias barely finishes above Kyle Wright on this list as the best pitcher in terms of wins, ERA, whip, and strikeouts. Let's see, Julio Urias, Kyle Wright, and Justin Verlander on the top 3. Shohei Ohtani is the first pitcher on the top 5 that placed in the top 10 in strikeouts. And there's Dylan Cease. I believe Dylan Cease was a Cy Young candidate. Is that correct?
Yes, he was. He was one of the finalists for the AL.
Yeah, and even in the traditional numbers, he still loses out to Justin Verlander on this one, and loses out to Shohei Ohtani to probably a lot of people's surprise. Was Shohei Ohtani nominated for Cy Young? I don't remember.
I don't believe so. I believe it was Verlander, Cease, and Manoah. I could double check it.
Manoah number 6. So you get a clue as to how these writers are voting and nominating these players as they still are looking at the traditional numbers.
Oh yeah.
Nestor Cortez at 7, Yu Darvish at 8, Aaron Nola at 9, Corbin Burns, who was the best pitcher last year traditionally and advanced metrics speaking, barely makes it in the top 10, and then Zach Gallen is tied for 10th. And I guess I should say that the thing I did was, I take the pitching category, like wins, for example. So let's sort it by wins, right? Kyle Wright finished number 1, so he gets 10 points for finishing first in that category, followed by Justin Verlander, who finished second in that category, so he gets 9 points. Julio Urias and Framber Valdez finished in third in that category, so they get 8 points apiece, and so on and so forth. Usually it's 1 point for finishing in 10th. So you do that, and I did that for all the categories. Just if you place in the top 10, you get 10 points at most, 1 point at minimum. And that's how I got these standings. So it's a usual suspects of names there, but you're looking at anybody from 12th and beyond. Anybody that kind of sticks out to you, as there were 31 pitchers that were ranked in these categories, but anybody in particular stick out to you in this traditional statistic I created?
Well, I mean, it's like obviously Kyle Wright had a very good year, and it was very funny to see a lot of Atlanta fans that were like, "Oh, Kyle Wright's not even in this. Why is nobody talking about Kyle Wright for the Cy Young? He has all these wins. He has a solid ERA." But it's like he was nowhere close to the guys like Verlander and Ohtani in terms of ERA, strikeouts, and the more advanced stuff. It was one of those very where you can still see a lot of fans they see, oh, he was a 20-game winner. He should win the Cy Young. Well, sorry, this is no longer the Rick Porcello show in which he robs Justin Verlander because simply he won 20 games, which was good to see that, Verlander won a Cy Young and we had a guy that had 20 wins and didn't win a Cy Young. So maybe like some sort of, even though they were in separate leagues, like a nice little taste of justice, I guess, for Justin Verlander.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I guess he did. That is the case. That is definitely true. But I was gonna ask, did you see anybody that kind of was, like anyone from 12th to like 31st, anybody that kind of stuck out to you?
Oh, I mean,
from that list,
I would say maybe Tristan McKenzie or someone like Tyler Anderson, who we did see already get paid by the Angels. One of the few kind of premier free agents off the market that had a qualifying offer. I was shocked he only got $13 million a year, but with his injury history, age, and the loss of money and draft picks, I guess it kind of fits. But those guys had slept on seasons as well.
Cy Young Award winner for the National League, Sandy Alcantara, in terms of traditional numbers and the traditional rankings, finished 13th, actually tied for 12th with Garrett Cole. So that was kind of surprising because I know that the strikeouts are lacking for Sandy Alcantara, but obviously he more than made up for him by being a workhorse and pitching a lot of innings. But maybe next year I should include innings pitched as well. But I didn't include innings pitched here. But either way, it wasn't enough. He did finish on the back end of the top 10 on some of these categories here, but ultimately Sandy Alcantara would finish tied for 12th, right there with Garrett Cole.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing with Sandy Alcantara was, yes, he had the lower ratio strikeout numbers, had under 9 Ks per 9, but still finished 8th in the majors in strikeouts simply because of that volume. Had more
points out of it.
Had more strikeouts than guys like Kevin Gossman, Shane Bieber, Yu Darvish, Shane McClanahan, Framber Valdez, and even Justin Verlander, Manoah. I already mentioned those guys, and Zach Gallen. That was the name I was trying to find. So even though like the strikeouts weren't, eye popping, it's one of those when you have somebody that can give you volume like that, they make up for it more in the aggregate than in the ratio.
Right. And like again, he got 3 points out of the strikeouts because he did finish in the top 10, but still, it's still in the back. I mean, he finished 10th in WHIP. So there's I don't know, man. It's just weird that he. What was his record? I forgot what his record was. Can you refresh my memory there?
Record was 14-9.
So 14-9. Okay,
with a 2.2 ERA, and that's 14 wins with a Miami Marlins team that was inconsistent offensively, to say the least.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's rough. It's rough to be productive when you play for a really bad team. It's just kind of eye-opening because he's not going to be impressing. He's not going to rank high in the advanced metrics, which we're going to get to in a little bit. It's just kind of funny that even in the traditional numbers, he still finished in the top 12, but it was still good enough for him to finish number 1 in Cy Young, and mostly because of the innings pitched, workhorse. Yeah. And he had a lot of complete games. So
yeah, I was saying that I think it was my favorite Sandy Alcantara stat of the year was that Sandy Alcantara had more complete games than any other rotation combined. With 6. And it wasn't like all of them were at least 8 or 9 innings, with the 8-inning one being, the team didn't score, so he didn't have to go back out there to pitch. Meanwhile, you had guys, I think Noah Syndergaard ended up having like 2 complete games, but they were both like 5 or 6 innings called up due to rain or something like that. So it's just one of those. The only person close to him was Framber Valdez, who I think of his 3 complete games, 2 of them were full 9-inning ones.
Oh wow, I did not know that. But Noah Syndergaard getting 2 complete games due to the weather. I mean, come on, he's
Yeah.
Thor.
Yeah. That one always still cracked me up that, I don't think he gets the credit for a complete game shutout,
No, I don't
but
think he gets the.
he hadn't given it up any runs, but it was only like 5 1/3 innings, and he gets credit for the complete game because it was an official game and they
No, no,
called
no.
it.
He doesn't get credit for being able to control the weather.
Oh,
He's
oh,
Thor.
because he's Thor. There you go.
Come on, man.
He should do that more often then.
Yeah.
He's a 5 and dive pitcher now. So pitch for 5 innings. If your team scores, then just pull down the hammer. There you go. Game over.
Yeah, speaking of Mets, there's a couple of guys from the Mets, Chris Bassett and Carlos Carrasco, getting some points for the wins. So that either a product of being on a really good team, or maybe they were that pretty damn good this year.
Yeah, Chris Bassett was definitely underrated, and he's going to have his one shot at free agency this year. Likely, I think, going to get around the Tyler Anderson, maybe a little bit more, just because he's more of a solid. But he was definitely, he stepped up more against the upper level of competition. Carlos Carrasco is a guy, if you go and you break down all of his starts, he's the perfect 4 now. But he was definitely someone who took advantage of feasting on the Marlins, the Pirates, the Nationals. And then you look at him versus like the Braves, Dodgers, and other teams, and he struggled immensely. But yeah, Chris Bassett was definitely slept on, got a lot of wins. Mets were top 3 offense in baseball. So that kind of explains those 2 guys having so many wins.
Also, getting a lot of wins this year is Cleveland Guardians ace Cal Quantrill. Look at that, 4 points for finishing in the top 10 in wins. So what, he must have gotten 13 wins, I guess, 12 wins. I think it was 12 wins.
Probably around that.
I think all these guys got 12 wins. So Cal Quantrill also shows up on the list. So that means he's a pretty good pitcher, right? He's elite now. He's top. Is he top 20? Top 20 pitcher.
Cal Quantrill had 15 wins and 5 losses with a 3.3. That's more wins than Dylan Cease, Sandy Alcantara, Max Fried, Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen. So yeah, Cal Quantrill for Cy Young next year, guys.
Oh yeah. So what were his other numbers?
I have the standard up right now, but let me look.
I got it. All I know is that Cal Quantrill was someone I did not want anywhere near my fantasy teams, but 186 innings pitched, that's pretty good. 32 starts. Hey, workhorse, 6.18 K per 9, which is the lowest of his career. The walk, he's always been pretty good with the controlling of the ability to control his walks, I should say. Anything else? 3.38 ERA, which is respectable, but the advanced metrics are not very good.
I'll say everything else was over 4. The expected ERA, FIP, and XFIP all over 4. But we talk about guys like Cal Quantrill with the Guardians. I mean, it's like they'll trade Quantrill next year or something, and then they'll call up somebody who will do the same exact thing, who we've never heard of, was never on a top 100, probably wasn't even top 10 in their own system. So it's just whatever at this point. They just create these guys.
Did they trade Peyton Battenfield? Wasn't that one of those guys we talked about?
They acquired Peyton Battenfield from Tampa. So that's whenever the Rays and Guardians trade with each other, you're just like, okay, this is interesting.
There was a pitcher that we talked about in the past that I think he made it on one of our lists, or he made it on one of our trade deadline discussions, who recently got traded, and I was about to message you and I just couldn't do it. And now I don't know who his name is, but he was definitely someone you were highly regarding, and I wasn't sure if it was Peyton Battenfield or somebody else.
Yeah, no, Peyton Battenfield was the 2021 season, but they might have acquired somebody this year, so I'll have to go look.
Yeah, someone got traded. Okay, so did you we were talking about the World Baseball Classic Team USA rotation. Did you get a chance to look at that yet or no?
Yes, I did. And it's, extremely. So you had Chris Archer for this is just the starters. Chris Archer, Danny Duffy, Tanner Roark, Marcus Stroman, and then in the designated pitcher pool that is like off the roster, but they can start if needed. You had Sonny Gray, Jay Happ, and Drew Smiley.
Wow, that's a lot. How the hell?
I mean, those are the arms that you get. I mean, and then with the relief pitchers, Clippard, Sam Dyson, Michael Givens, Luke Gregerson, that's a name. Nate Jones, Jake McGee, Andrew Miller, Pat Neshek, and David Robertson.
How the hell did they win? I mean, I guess the bullpen is pretty damn good. I mean, but and then they basically got carried by Marcus Stroman. It's Marcus Stroman took it upon himself to carry the pitching staff that year. I remember. I
And
remember that.
offensively, they're always just so far ahead of the rest of the world, it seems. So
I don't know, man. Some of the Dominican teams, they.
I mean, this year, I feel like this year it's going to be closer. I don't think they win this year.
All right, so here's on the Hunter Renfroe trade, since we talked about that. A couple of guys that we talked about in the past, probably because they were traded in previous deadline deals or something like that. But Elvis Peguero goes to the Brewers from the Angels, and so does Jansen Junk. I could have sworn we talked about those two guys.
Jansen Junk is somebody we've mentioned because I think he was traded before, and for some reason I want to say Yankees, but I'm not 100% sure.
You might be right. It might have been the Yankees, and we can look deeper into that. But I'm still looking for that other name that I was like, no, we just talked about that guy. Kyle Lewis got traded for Cooper Hummel, apparently. So that was an interesting trade.
I'm a big Cooper Hummel fan, so this is fun. This is fun.
Yeah, that's a decent trade, but now the Diamondbacks have like 20 outfielders now. You can't start everybody.
Well, Hummel has some experience behind the plate as well, and that's kind of where Seattle, they've had Nola back there. Not really exactly what they're looking for, but yeah, Jansen Junk was a Yankee.
That's what I thought. Eric Swanson, who we'll be talking about in the relief pitcher, he just got traded for Teoscar Hernandez.
Yep, and people were like, "Oh yeah, that's a great trade for Seattle to get Teoscar Hernandez." And it's like yeah, it is, but he only has 1 year left. Swanson has 3, and a lot of people, I included him in my top 5 relief pitchers, just because I wanted him to get some attention, because I think a lot of people slept on how good Eric Swanson was this year.
Dennis Santana was finally given up by the Texas Rangers. He's going to the Braves,
which is where he started, I believe, too.
Oh, okay. Nolan Jones, hot shot prospect to the Rockies from the Guardians.
I made the joke that him and Ryan McMahon are going to see each other in the clubhouse for the first time and be like, once again, the Spider-Man meme. No, I'm you. I mean, because they just seem like such similar players. That lefty that can't really hit lefties. But we're so enticed with the power and the fly ball in Coors Field with prospects like when Ryan McMahon was a prospect, and of course now Nolan Jones going to be in Coors Field. Should be very interesting.
McMahon's a little shorter and probably a little bit more well built at this point, but both of them are lefties with immense power potential. Yeah, so hopefully Nolan Jones can figure it out. Xavier Edwards, who seems to have been a top 10, 15, 20 prospect for a long time, finally was given up by the Rays. He's going to Miami.
I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a win-win for each side because Tampa had to get rid of a lot of guys off their 40 to protect guys and add them to the 40.
Another guy that the Rangers gave up on, Nick Solak. Finally, they're done with that experiment,
and he's going to the Reds. And I'm like, okay, him and Nick Senzel are the same people. So what are we even doing here? Like,
it's the Noah's Ark of things, I get 2 of everything here. So I guess he wasn't a pitcher; he was a catcher. Peyton Henry, going from the Brewers to the Marlins, and I forgot where he started, but he was definitely someone we talked about during one of the trade deadline shows. So never mind, it was not Peyton Battenfield, but Peyton Henry. Henry, who started with. Oh, I guess he's always been with the Brewers.
Yeah, so I don't really remember much about. There's Gavin Williams, Logan Allen, Tanner Bibby. I don't know. Joey Cantillo. I think all these guys. Actually, Cantillo was signed by the Padres, but acquired in August of 20. I don't see any guys that the Guardians acquired in 2022 via trade. So
no,
it might have been Peyton Battenfield, but just we're a year late because
no, it was Peyton Henry who I was thinking about as the guy who was recently traded, and I thought he was a pitcher, but he's a catcher. And I remember. But this is why we talk about all these bum ass players, regardless of where they are.
Because when they finally get traded, we're like, hey, we talked about him.
Yeah. That's why. At least that's the kick I get out of it. But anyway, let's go back to our pitching. So that was the traditional numbers. Now we go into the more advanced stats here. So I do it by F4, field independent pitching, xFIP, Sierra. So I guess do we need to explain what each of these metrics are?
If you want to.
All right. Fangraphs WAR, basic wins above replacement. It's we'll take turns, by the way, explaining. Yep. Fangraphs WAR is the overall statistic that Fangraphs tries to give to provide overall value to these pitchers, and it is based mostly on strikeouts and how they control walks and how they control their home run totals as well, which is Fangraphs WAR uses a lot of what they call the field independent pitching. Sean, if you want to explain what that is.
Yeah, so that is what, when they just focus on strikeouts, walks, and home runs, and what their ERA would look like if it was just those three things that the pitcher controlled, rather than the somewhat randomness of balls in play, qualities of defense between teams, ballparks. People don't think about it, but it's like, oh, just the square footage of an outfield severely influences BABIP, which can increase or decrease batting average, which most people, when they think about Colorado, they think, oh yeah, it increases home runs. Well, no, it increases BABIP because it has the most square footage of any outfield in baseball, aside from, I believe, Kauffman Stadium.
Yeah. And by the way, field independent pitching is one of the stats that goes into the Fangraphs WAR calculation is what I was trying to say. XFIP is, why don't you go ahead and explain XFIP since you already touched a little bit on the FIP.
Yeah, so XFIP would be if you took a pitcher's, it's the same strikeouts, walks, home runs, but it normalizes home runs. So a pitcher that pitches in a very home run friendly park like Yankee Stadium or Colorado or Baltimore before they put that monstrosity in left field. What's the word I'm looking for here? Standardizes basically the home run to fly ball rate. It normalizes it to what the league average home run to fly ball rate was. So if a certain pitcher gave up a lot of home runs on fly balls, it would bring his home run total back to league average, and then kind of, expected what it would be if it was in a neutral playing field or a league average playing field, rather than them being judged by the amount of home runs they gave up because they played in Coors Field or wherever.
Yeah, and then when you ever see the letters FIP, just it stands for field independent pitching. Basically, if the pitcher has no fielders, can he get outs? Can he survive? So that's basically what you guys should be thinking about. And then the last one is Sierra, which stands for Skills Interactive ERA. This one accounts for the ground balls, the balls in play, like you mentioned. That one does account for that.
Yeah, it's basically XFIP, but it takes into account the batted ball data of the pitcher. So the ground balls, fly balls, line drives, which obviously grounders are probably the most optimal, followed by fly balls, and then line drives are bad.
So there you go. So that's how we have it. And for this one, again, same thing that I did with the traditional numbers. If you place in the top 10 of these statistical categories, you do get points for it, 10 points for leading the category, 1 point for placing in 10th. So I added all four components, and I got this number with Shohei Ohtani barely beating out Aaron Nola, 32 points to 31. Carlos Rodon finishing in third, former Giant Kevin Gausman finishing in fourth. So that's pretty damn impressive, because we thought that he was going to melt down in Toronto, and he still finished in the top 5 in a lot of these categories, except for Sierra.
Yeah, I want to say he finished like 10th in the voting too, and he put out a little tweet when they announced it, and it was just like 10th with the laughing faces. I thought he was probably the biggest snub. Like you said, he finished, I believe, 5th in all of Major League Baseball in F4. The strikeouts were great. The walks were, one of the best in baseball. And the ERA did climb up kind of towards the end. He had a couple of rough starts, but I thought he was one of the best and most consistent pitchers in the American League last year. Had more starts than Verlander or Ohtani.
Yeah.
I thought that gave him the edge over those guys, but it just didn't work out this year. Yeah. But he did do much better than I think we both anticipated.
I know I was always high on Kevin Gausman, except this year. Like, no, this is the year you want to sell high on Kevin Gausman or avoid Kevin Gausman, and which was surprised a lot of people. It surprised Austin, I know that much. Like, I think it surprised you as well, because you were expecting me to come in with my Kevin Gausman pom-poms, but that the whole thing with the American League East and the Blue and playing for the Blue Jays, I just didn't like that.
And especially switching from the National League West, half of your starts being in AT&T or Oracle, whatever it is, to the American League East, which we always talk about. Like, when it's like, yeah, Jose Barrios is the perfect example, his teammate. I've never been high on Jose Barrios, and when he got traded to the American League East, I said, yep, this is it. I am like, I used to be like, okay, there might be a chance Jose Barrios is still good. And then he went and was one of the worst pitchers in baseball this year. So
Yeah, and the Blue Jays basically upgraded. I know they had to give up on Robbie Ray because of free agency, and Gossman ended up having a much better year than Robbie Ray. Even though Robbie Ray was a Cy Young candidate and winner, actually, he did win last year. And I'll give Robbie Ray credit; he was able to get the wins, which I know is something that people look into. I know this because that's one of the reasons I acquired him in the points league, because he was getting wins for the Mariners. And he racked up a lot of strikeouts from what I remember as well.
Yeah.
But Gossman, he's on another level here. But of course, what killed Gossman in the Cy Young voting is, as you can see, the traditional numbers, he's blacked out in 3 of those categories. So he did not finish in the top 10, but he more than makes up for it in the advanced metrics. And then running out the top 5, Justin Verlander, Shane McClanahan, Garrett Cole finishing in 7th, Corbin Burns finishing in 8th. Again, Burns finished number 1 last year. So what a difference a year makes. Number 9 was Shane Bieber. Number 10, Sandy Alcantara, and tied with him is Max Fried. So so he does a little bit better in the metrics and the advanced metrics as opposed to the traditional numbers. But top 10 pitcher, and that's your Cy Young candidate. That is your Cy Young winner. So I don't know, man. I think people are falling too much in love with the whole complete games and innings pitch. It definitely didn't help the Marlins too much this year. But yeah, there it is. Top 10. Sandy Alcantara, and is grouped in there with Max Fried. And then rounding out the last of these other guys, Framber Valdez, Zach Wheeler, Brandon Woodruff, who has kind of fallen off from grace, almost got his arm fallen off as well from the sun. Jose Quintana and Dylan Cease. Oh, the White Sox fans are going to be mad at me. Dylan Cease finishing 16th and getting 1 measly point out of it. That's because of the F-WARP, but he did not. And again, I think that's more of a control issue with him, as he did. But I believe
the walks came down, but they were still high. I mean, it was 3.82 per 9 innings. The strikeouts were great, but it's still one of those, like, they came down, but they're still bad.
So it is a little bit of a eye test, or the advanced metrics not meeting up the expectations of the eye test. And Dylan Cease definitely was a Cy Young candidate. But according to these numbers, I mean, he should be not anywhere near that vicinity. He finished 16th in the advanced stats and the advanced stats. So where did he finish in the traditional numbers again? Dylan Cease was, I just saw him.
5.
Oh, okay. So again, you could say, oh, well, then that's because the traditional numbers are better than the advanced metrics. But in the traditional numbers also undervalue Sandy Alcantara, despite the fact, again, we didn't include innings pitch, and definitely we're not going to include complete games on this one. But anyway,
there's not enough to go around.
Yeah, I gotta cut it off somewhere. I can't be doing this forever. So what I can do is find a happy medium, right? So this blue highlighted statistic that I created here, it takes this number, the traditional 4x5 hero accumulation score, and it takes this advanced metric score and gives me a happy total, right? So I get the best of both worlds there, Sean Flannery. I get the traditional number and advanced metric, and ultimately Shohei Ohtani wins out, beating out Aaron Nola by 4 points.
And is that what you used for your top 6?
Pretty much.
I was saying, because that looks like your top 6.
Yeah, I tried to account for all the other ones, but it just seemed like the 6 names that ended up being the names that appear the most on all of these 4 colored categories I have here. Yeah. And it just turns out that this is what it mirrors, the top 6 here. But Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Nola, Carlos Rodon, Justin Verlander finishing in 4th, Kevin Gausman in 5th, and Shane McClanahan barely beating out Garrett Cole in 6th place, getting 26 points to Garrett Cole's 25 points. Garrett Cole having a pretty darn good year, despite the fact that the home runs were. I'm assuming that the home runs is what killed him this year. Is that a fair assessment?
1.5 home runs per 9, 3.5 ERA, 3.3 F-WAR, which was tied with Merrill Kelly.
Yeah, Merrill Kelly.
Yeah. I don't think Yankees fans are gonna like to hear that, but yeah, tied with Merrill Kelly, and behind he had a pretty considerable lower F-WAR than both. Oh God, Jose Quintana and Martin Perez.
Oh, Martin Perez. I forgot all about him. You know why? Because he's not that good.
It's funny, but Jose Quintana and Martin Perez are sandwiched right next to each other in F-WAR. and like all of their numbers are identical. Their strikeouts, they're both around 7.5 per 9. The walks 2.5. Martin walked a little bit more, but Quintana had a 2.93 ERA. Martin Perez 2.89 ERA. Just those crafty lefties that I think had too good of a year. But just funny to see that those two guys finished ahead of Mr. Kermit the Frog.
Speaking of Merrill Kelly, number 7 in innings pitched. Merrill Kelly, workhorse for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, one of the few guys to go over. Him and Garrett Cole had nearly identical innings pitched, 200.1, 200.2. There weren't many people that hit 200 innings this year, and Merrill Kelly was one of them. Yeah, only 8 of them. Yeah, that's wild. 180 is the new 200, and I feel like we've been saying that for about 2-3 years now.
And I think I could have sworn that there was fewer. There were fewer last year. Four starting pitchers.
There were definitely fewer in 2020.
For sure. But yeah, 4 in 2021, and those guys were Sandy Alcantara, who actually I think he led the league in innings pitched this year, right?
Oh yeah, it wasn't even close.
Adam Wainwright, who we thought he was done, and Walker Buehler, and Zach Wheeler, number 1.
Yeah. Oh, so Wheeler was number 1 last year.
Yeah, and Wheeler once again finished with 213 innings. So yeah,
I thought he should have won Cy Young over Corbin Burns. So. I guess I'm kind of in the same ballpark in that I also thought Sandy Alcantara should have won it this year, and he did over someone like Aaron Nola. But I think that's pretty similar. Maybe Burns just had all the noteworthy stuff early in the year that kind of helped him over Wheeler, who was just went out there and pitched 7 innings every start. It was kind of wild last year.
Right. So Merrill Kelly, do you trust him for next year?
Not a chance.
Hey, Diamondbacks are going to get better next year. Come on.
They just hope he has a good 2.5 months and they can trade him. Or is he a free agent?
I don't know. You tell me.
You continue and I will find out.
Garrett Cole finishing in 7th, and Corbin Burns, we just mentioned, in 8th. Julio Urias, most of those points are because of the traditional number. He'll finish in 9th. Kyle Wright in 10th. Sandy Alcantara, number 11. Buy or sell Sandy Alcantara as the number 11th best starting pitcher in 2022.
Oh, he's so much better than that. So much better than that.
But the traditional numbers or the advanced metrics don't say he is, though. Either one, no matter what.
I don't care.
6 complete games.
I still think he can get more strikeouts. I think he's a guy that is purposely one of those. In order to go deeper into games, he tries to shorten at bats rather than just try and get guys into deeper counts and get strikeouts, because he has a nasty slider and changeup, which he could use to get way more swings and misses. But I think he lives so much in the zone and his stuff is so nasty. He knows he can get weak contact and go deeper into the game, which is better than their bullpen. So I think he's trading some personal ability to help the team win. I think that's personally what it is. And Merrill Kelly is not a free agent. He signed a 2-year, $18 million extension.
All the more reason to believe in him. All the more reason to believe in him. Merrill Kelly, top 10 starting pitcher for fantasies. Book it. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks.
Oh, God.
Let's see. Sandy Alcantara, according to Pitch Info, led all starting pitchers. I dropped it down to 150 innings pitched on the Fangraphs thing here, just so I can match my spreadsheet. But he still finished number 1 in velocity, fastball velocity, at 98 miles per hour. Just a little bit ahead of Garrett Cole and Shohei Ohtani. So
yeah, so Merrill Kelly signed that deal in April. I was trying to figure out when he signed it. I was like, I know it wasn't this offseason, but
moving on here, number 12, Dylan Cease. So Dylan Cease, okay, I'm definitely buying Dylan Cease as a 12th ranked. So that's 12 pitchers right there, Sean. So of the top 12 on this list, who should be SP number 1 next year? Is it really Sandy Alcantara, or is it? Or you want to go somewhere else?
I mean, it could be Corbin Burns, but I would definitely. I think this list is easier to say who won't be there next year, and I think that's someone like Kyle Wright and
probably Julio Urias then.
Yeah, probably Julio Urias. Always, I mean, anytime you're a really good pitcher on the Dodgers, you're going to win a lot of games.
That's a good point.
I could take. Well, I could be a little risk of
Kyle Wright, though. You can say the same thing about Kyle Wright.
I don't think Kyle Wright's as good as he was this year.
All right. Well, go back. Let's focus on one thing at a time. Who's your SP number 1 next year? Right now, is it? It wasn't. I bet it wasn't.
Yeah, it's either Burns or Alcantara.
But pick one then. SP number 1 for next February.
Burns just for the strikeouts.
Wow. Okay. So Alcantara does not possess the ability to strike out guys. You heard it here, folks.
Oh no,
Sean
no, no, no,
Flannery
no,
does
no,
not
no.
believe in Sandy Alcantara.
I hate you.
Carlos Rodon, does he continue to be this good next year?
You see, a lot of Mets fans are saying, "Oh, Carlos Rodon is the perfect replacement for Jacob deGrom," and I'm like, and they say, "Oh, Jacob deGrom has too many health issues. Go sign Carlos Rodon," and I'm like, "Oh, Carlos Rodon has yet to ever throw 200 innings in a season. In fact, I believe this was the most he's ever thrown at 178." I think he's been very, very good the last 2 years. No doubting that. He's figured something out. But I feel like if he loses even just a little bit of that velo, we know he has the shoulder problems. We know that. I don't trust him.
Yeah,
He's the one guy who just one little thing could happen and he's nothing.
man,
I mean, he's back to being. I mean, we'd be lucky if he's back to being, 2016 through 2018 him, which is like 4 ERA, around 9.5 strikeouts per 9. Like, I think he's peaking, and I think going forward, I mean, he's already, 30, 31. Oh, okay, he's going to turn 30 in less than a month.
It's an old 30, though. I mean, like you mentioned, the arm problems. Even with the White Sox, he was starting to gas out a little bit in the second half. Remember, he had the no-hitter. And then it just seemed to be downhill. It wasn't as, dominant ever since.
A lot of people gave the White Sox crap for not offering him a qualifying offer,
no,
which I think, and of course, with what he did this year, with how good he was. But yeah, I think they had some insider info on the health of that arm.
Well, yeah, they're the ones who ruined it.
And the fact that you hear, I haven't heard anything about San Francisco even being interested in him coming back.
Right.
I think that's the last 2 teams he's been with have been like, okay, we're good. You can leave.
Good, yeah.
Granted, they did offer him a qualifying offer because they knew he was going to decline. With how Rodon's season ended last year, he theoretically could have returned because of that last, month and a half. But yeah, I think it's very telling that the last 2 teams really don't want him back or haven't been extremely interested. So yeah, I'm out on Carlos Rodon. He's probably a guy I'd pick to not be there next year, just because if he gets hurt, I mean, he's done.
Yeah, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny in fantasy leagues to get him because of how dominant he was. I mean, you look at, he's probably the 3rd best pitcher according to the advanced metrics.
For fantasy 2023, who are you picking, Carlos Rodon or Sandy Alcantara?
No, I'm picking Alcantara.
Okay, good.
Alcantara's younger.
Okay, you're not crazy.
The only thing that worries me about Alcantara is that he is racking up a lot of innings for. And he plays on a very crappy ass team. But like you mentioned, he's probably preserving his arm and his stamina just so he can get through these innings rather quickly.
Yeah.
And is going inning a pitch to contact model, so to speak. Whereas Rodon, I mean, I've seen this from Rodon. I've been waiting on Rodon forever, and he's just let down. If I'm Rodon, I am just picking somewhere out in the West Coast and marching towards retirement.
Like, I could see like LA, like the Dodgers, like, I mean, the Angels would be very on brand for them to sign someone like Carlos Rodon, but I feel like the Dodgers might be in play for him if like his market kind of, I don't want to say free falls, but Tyler Anderson got $13 million. Like,
right.
Andrew Haney got like the same thing. It was because then they're both going to LA, right? The Angels.
Well, Andrew Haney's back with the Angels? Shit.
Yeah. Oh, no, he wasn't with the Angels. I don't think he accepted the qualifying offer. Maybe that's what it was.
Oh, okay.
But
all right. Well, about Dylan Cease, is 12th, is that going to be about right, or is that too low for him for next year?
That sounds about right. I think when you built it, yeah, because what was his total whip this year? It was let's see if I pull it up. Because you want to think that base runners this year is going to be even more of a problem with the stolen base rules. And for the amount of base runners he allowed last year, like he struck out a lot of guys, didn't give up a lot of hits. But if you start walking guys and they start running.
See, the problem with Dylan Cease is not that he can't get anybody out. It's just that he walks so many guys. But otherwise, the whip was at 1.
Yeah, at 1.1. Yeah, that's not bad. But going into this year, his career whip was 1.36. So is he more of maybe like a true 1.2 something guy, 1.2 and a half, like he was in 2021? Probably.
Here's another scary stat for you. 150 innings pitched minimum, right? Is how I'm doing
Yeah.
it here. Even with that low innings pitch total for the minimum qualification for me, Dylan Cease still finished a dead last in walk rate. And he was
Yeah.
the only starting pitcher on this list to get double-digit walk rate at 10.4%. No one else even got close. So Nick Pivetta was at 9.4%. And then teammate Lucas Giolito was at 8.7. So this might be just an overall White Sox problem for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you
yeah.
look at his numbers going into 2022, he had a 10.64 K per nine, 4.1 walks per nine. The strikeouts went up about that much. The walks came down about the same amount in terms of difference, about 0.4. His left on base jumped nearly 10%. The ERA dropped from a career 4.39 before 2022 to 2.20. Like I said, I think there's a lot of built-in risk there. The walks really didn't change all that much. It was just the strikeouts went up and less base hits. I like the upside with Dylan Cease, but those walks worry me. Any pitcher who walks that much, you're just asking for trouble. And then the fact his home runs, he nearly halved his home run total this year. Maybe that's dead ball stuff. Maybe if they reintroduce a not dead ball, who knows? But yeah, he kept the home runs down. The walks came down a little bit. That's progress that you like to see, but got to see more of it. I got to see him take another step like he did this year.
Right. And who knows with him being he's going to be the default ace next year for the White Sox, and he has the stuff for it.
It's not Lucas Giolito?
No, I'm done with him, man. I am so done with him.
Maybe he's the next Lucas Giolito. I don't know.
See, the problem with Lucas Giolito is that he had those. Well, I guess you could say the same thing for Dylan Cease, but I feel like Giolito's arm problems were much more.
For sure, for sure.
More spotlighted. I know Cease, I think he had the Tommy John surgery when he was at the Cubs, but I feel like Giolito. Plus, Giolito's been in the league longer, and he already came with a average of mid 90s fastball. Giolito did. So the only place you can go is down, and he had to redo his whole pitching mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, he became a changeup guy,
and learn how to pitch a decent
really hasn't
changeup.
Worked.
Whereas Cease it's all electric stuff, man. So the sliders is amazing. The fastball is electric, and he is definitely up in the high 90s. So he has the stuff for it to be the ace, and he now has the productivity to match it. Can he continue on that path though? Can he?
Yeah. It's all
walk rate.
It's all about the control and command. Seeing that he, halved his home run total, which of course has to be a little bit with the dead ball this year. That shows maybe a little bit of an improvement of command within the zone, but we still need to see more control of pitches outside of the strike zone, because that walk rate was still, like you said, of all pitchers with 150 innings, the worst.
Yeah, and Alek Manoah is right behind him, who everybody loves Alek Manoah, and for, I guess, good reason. But for me,
and walk rate, Manoah was behind?
No. I'm sorry, back to my spreadsheet. Manoah finished 13th on the spreadsheet here.
Okay.
Right behind Dylan Cease. I'm trying to see where I can find Manoah on the leaderboard, and I can't find him anywhere. But when I had a tough choice to make. I had to acquire some starting pitchers for my pseudo run in the points league. Remember, that's the league where I was like, I have a fighting chance to, make the playoffs and win the championship. And then it turned out I didn't. But Alek Manoah was a guy I was thinking of acquiring to help me on the stretch run. And then I saw, like, in the last 14, 30 days, 40 days, whatever, small sample size, it seemed like his walk rate was also increasing, and that kind of turned me off. And that's when I realized, like, maybe I should stop making trades and just wave the white flag and lick my wounds and prepare for next season.
Figure it out next year.
Yeah, but Manoah's walk rate, I felt like, was also dangerously climbing up the more I looked into him. And of course, I'm looking for him, trying to sort by innings pitched. Where else did he finish? I guess I could do wins and see if I could find him there. But Manoah, do you like him for next year as well, or no?
I feel like there's a lot of hype around him.
Right.
And it's like one of those, you look at the strikeout rate, and he was like right in that same category as Sandy Alcantara, under 9 per inning, or under 9 per 9 innings pitch. The walks were okay. He's a fly ball pitcher, and he didn't give up like any home runs. He gave up, it was like 0.5 or 0.6, something like that. I'm looking at your hypothesis about his walk rate. It did go up in August and was higher in September and October than it was the first 4 months. So in the second half, it climbed about 2.5%, while the strikeout rate was about the same. I don't know. It's like he's one of those guys that when you watch, he looks like he should end up striking more guys out. He's more,
Right.
he's like the bulldog mentality. And we saw it last year. In 111 innings, he had a 10.24 K per nine, in which came with a 27.7 strikeout percentage, compared
He
to
got
just 20.
tired.
Yeah, maybe just compared to 23% this year. So the fastball velos averages about 94. I don't know. He's one of those guys who I think when you watch, you think, oh yeah, this guy's like the ace.
Right.
And maybe he's more of like the bulldog number 2-3. Like maybe that's
Mm.
just what it is.
Yeah, that's not going to cut the mustard for the Blue Jays, who are expecting to do bigger things next year, and you'll see for a bit. But yeah, he definitely needs to step up. I'm just going to say, maybe it's a stamina issue. I mean, he went from 20 innings, 20 games started last year as a rookie to 31 this year, increasing his innings pitched by what? That looks like 70 or 80 innings more.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah,
give him the benefit of the
he
doubt.
threw a combined like 130 last year between AAA and MLB, and he threw nearly 200 innings this year. So big
Yeah.
jump.
Otherwise, the swing rates went up slightly, but they did go up. Unfortunately, so did the contact rates. So maybe that has something to do with it. Yeah, so maybe it's just more more film on the guy and fatigue, a combination of things that we cannot account for on these spreadsheets and statistics that we're looking at. And you mentioned that the fastball velocity stayed the same, right? Yeah, it's about the same.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you look at him last year versus this year. You know, obviously strikeouts were much higher last year. But you look at expected ERA last year, 3.30, this year, 3.31. His Sierra last year, 3.88, this year, 3.85. So very in line, very consistent in terms
Yeah.
of the peripherals, which I think establishes a higher floor.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that ceiling is yet. But it's definitely a high floor pitcher, with the potential to really be a very good top of the rotation type arm. But he's real young. We got to see more of it. Only 24. So,
All right. Well, let's play a game. Start one, bench one, cut one, and delete one, I guess. I don't know. Well, I guess delete would be cutting, right?
so just those three.
Send one to the bullpen, or send one down to the minor leagues. Let's make it interesting. So they got 4 names for you: Yu Darvish, Nestor Cortez, Framber Valdez, or Max Fried. Who would you, so to speak, start one? I guess.
Oh God,
opening day starter right there. I guess.
I think I'll start Framber Valdez.
Damn right you will.
Like him and Max Fried are close. Like I won't lie, that him and Max Fried are close.
All right, so that's one. Bench one.
Bench one. I'll bench Max Fried.
Okay. What's the other one? Cut one, I guess.
Yeah, I'll cut Yu Darvish.
Oh, and so
because he's old. Because he's old.
Nestor Cortez going to the minors then.
Yeah, I'm gonna be an ageist. I'm gonna send Yu Darvish. I'm just gonna get rid of him on the basis of age. I'm gonna get sued by the FCC or whoever does that stuff. ADA, I don't know.
We're not a private company, so you're just gonna get, but you are gonna get canceled. So
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think I'm in line with you. I definitely Framber Valdez. I cannot get enough of the guy. I don't know if he can repeat what he did this past year, especially with all the inconsistent Statcast sliders that we see on his page. All he does is produce. So I think I'm with you right there. I think I'm definitely avoiding Yu Darvish next year, and Nestor Cortez. I am not reaching for him next year either. Zach Gallen at number 18. By him lonesome. Number 8.
Yeah, I mean, him and Max Fried are not very dissimilar, except Framber walks more guys, but the ground ball rate is just so much higher. And it's like Max Fried's one of the best ground ball artists in the game. It's just Framber Valdez is the ground ball artist in the league.
Right.
They were right next to each other in ERA 2.48, 2.82. I mean, about 4. It's I guess half a run. I think Fried had a really good year this year. I think I expect a little bit more retraction from him. I trust Framber Valdez way more.
Wow, I didn't realize that we were already up there on time. Really quick, then. Last question for you. I'm going to mention Shane Bieber's the last guy, 19th overall on this list, who made it in the double digit in points. So he got 10 points out of it. So all the single digit guys, starting with Tristan McKenzie all the way down to Jose Quintana, who do you like for next year?
I'd probably pick Wheeler.
Wheeler.
Yeah, even though, because you have to think he didn't have that spring training the first month or so, he was still kind of kicking things into gear. And then by midway through the season, he was that ace that we saw last year, just going out there 6-7 innings every start. But I'd also, Woodruff would probably. I look for him to bounce back as long as he's healthy. But
Yeah,
definitely Zach Wheeler's the guy that I'm going to have on a lot of teams.
I think I'm gonna avoid Woodruff and drop him down on my list. Like, he's usually a top 20, top 15 pitcher for me. I might drop him to 30, 35. Who are you avoiding next year on this list?
Probably Robbie Ray again.
Oh man. Okay.
Granted, I think there's a lot of potential there for a high win season if Seattle takes that step forward, like we think they can. Like I see Morton and Quintana down there at the bottom. Those are guys I wouldn't really want to begin with.
Right.
But yeah, probably, Robbie Ray, I in our home league, I didn't keep him, even though he came off a Cy Young season. It's just his command, it got worse, but it wasn't as bad as his like Arizona numbers. The home runs went back up. I don't know. I don't trust Robbie Ray. He's kind of like the Dylan Cease. I mean, he always was that guy that had the really good strikeouts, but the walks. And then everything just kind of went right for him last year in terms of the walks coming down. The left on base rate was insanely high, so he didn't give up a lot of runs.
It's actually a good comparison. I like that comparison.
Yeah, it really is, because we both know they have that potential to just go out there and dominate a game, but they get in their own way. It's not the hitters that really get in their way. It's just they don't throw enough strikes. So
my guy that when I see him, I can't help but get excited. Luis Garcia. I'm sorry. I see a Houston Astros player, a pitcher, starting pitcher. I get excited. The thing I hate is that the fact that they might go to another 6-man rotation next year. Obviously, Tristan McKenzie is the obvious choice here, especially if he can come back. And I think that what was the issue with him was that the fatigue factor, or that he's too scrawny or skinny.
What, McKenzie? Yeah, it was kind of like he was losing, especially less so this year, but more so last year.
Right.
When he'd get into like the 5th and 6th inning of games, his fastball velo in the first few innings was like 95, 96. And then by the time he was coming out of the game, his fastball velo was 89, 91, 92. So
he'll definitely move up my list. But Luis Garcia, I think he's someone I can get on the cheap, especially if as long as he's listed as a starting pitcher, but maybe like number 4, number 5 starting pitcher. I just won't be able to help myself and try to get a lot of shares of Luis Garcia next year, as he shows up here because he got a lot of wins. But hopefully that also will translate into better, more strikeouts and lower whip and better rate stats in terms of the advanced metrics. The last stat that I want to talk about, strikeouts plus the advanced metrics. So this is the one I used for last year to figure out who my best pitcher was, and this is how Corbin Burns became my Cy Young and best SP of last year. But as you can see, Aaron Nola, this and Shohei Ohtani flip-flop. Nola beating out Ohtani by 1 point, and Rodon finishing in second with Ohtani with 37 points. Gausman, Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns, Justin Verlander, Shane McClanahan, Alcantara finishing a little bit better here at number 9, and then Shane Bieber once again getting double-digit points here for his troubles. So there it is. And now we go for the podcast picks. Still waiting for everybody else to make their picks. They're still eating that turkey, but pretty similar. I mean, you got Shohei Ohtani here between Sean and I.
And
Aaron
you
Nola.
did. I thought I was going crazy because you did not have Alcantara. You were given 6 spots and he was not there. I was insulted. I was insulted for him.
You saw he finished outside the top 10 in some of these stats. So I'm like, you know what, man? I can't do it. You got to be able to finish in the top 10 somewhere. I got to be able to justify it. Otherwise, I can't forgive myself. So maybe next year he'll stop messing around and get more strikeouts. I don't know. And there's Rodon. We both have Rodon. I'm trying to coordinate this as best I can. There's Kevin Gossman. So we both had Kevin Gossman, but you had him as your SP5. I had him as my SP4. So let's put up a
Really, what I
color.
wanted was Rodon and Otani as like 3A, 3B, and then
we don't
Gossman,
do that
Verlander. I know, but it was
we
like,
don't do that
to me,
shit.
they were so similar this year, like pitching wise.
There's Justin Verlander. And then the one difference is Shane McClanahan. I got him as my SP6, and there was no room for Sandy Alcantara. Sandy Alcantara finishing as the Cy Young winner. He is who are you again? Sean.
Yeah, that is my name.
That's Sean's guy as the SP1. Shohei Ohtani and Justin Verlander had the same amount of starts this year at 28.
Yeah.
I believe
you see, that was the thing. So many people were like, "Oh, Otani only pitches once a week," and I'm like, "Okay, Verlander. Yeah, like what are we doing here?"
Yeah, it's just a hate, I'll be honest. I was one of those people, but I mean, Ohtani showed me a lot this year. That's why I have him as my SP1. Like, I know that a lot of it is to preserve his arm, and because he does play every day. I get it, which is really frustrating. But you know what? They were able to do the same thing with Justin Verlander in Houston just to preserve his arm and get him ready for the championships and stuff. So maybe I don't know what next year's going to hold. I don't know if these teams, because it seemed like all the winning teams were trying to introduce a 6-man rotation, but I don't know if they're going to keep doing that for next year. So it's going to be interesting to see which teams go with the 6-man rotations and which don't.
Well, it's like, did Seattle ever really complete a 6-man rotation this year? They were the one that we really thought would, and maybe they still could. I don't know, because they have so many good arms going into next year. Seattle does, and
at the beginning they did. Then I feel like as the year went on, they just decided to scrap it. But we were seeing, delayed starts for Logan Gilbert and George Kirby and the like. So maybe they would just use it sparingly. I don't know, but excuse me. So we'll see. But Ohtani, I think he pitched 166 innings pitched, which qualifies him for the ERA title, which was always a knock on him.
Yeah,
he doesn't throw enough innings to qualify. I mean, Justin Verlander, he got to what, 175, I think,
something like that. Yeah,
so
he was right around 170.
So he's not that far off. So maybe we'll see more of Ohtani on the mound next season. But why would you, when he is such a special player that you wouldn't want to take away his bat? But he does hit though, right? He does hit when he pitches, right? They're not.
Yes.
So there's your traditional number right there. Let's go move over to the relief pitchers really quick. And as you can see, there was like 43. Last year there were 45 pitchers that were ranked. This one should be pretty easy. And we start the list over here. I guess I forgot to sort it by the traditional hero. Again, the traditional 4x5 heroes, that's the saves, the ERA, the whip, and the strikeouts. No wins, because we don't care too much about that from our relief pitchers, right?
Yeah.
We cares about saves. And Clase and Diaz, Edwin Diaz. Emmanuel Clase and Edwin Diaz finished number 1 and number 2. Actually, tie for first when you consider the ERA, the whip, the strikeouts, and the saves. Clase got first place for saves and whip. Diaz got the most strikeouts out of the relief pitcher. And then a guy that we both liked at the beginning of the season, at the very least, Ryan Helsley, Evan Phillips. I think he's one of the guys that we were kind of wondering what the hell people were complaining about when Dave Roberts replaced, I believe, Julio Urias for Evan Phillips. Like, hey, do you guys not know who Evan Phillips is for the Dodgers? He's pretty damn good.
Oh, wait. Oh, and like in relief
in the playoffs. Game 1, I believe it was.
Okay, yeah.
I think that was the guy who replaced Julio Urias.
I thought you meant in the rotation, and I was like, when did that happen?
I believe it was game 1, where Urias was.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Eli Morgan for the Guardians again. The Guardians, they don't care. Just, are you healthy? Can you throw a pitch? Fine, you're in the bullpen. Let's go. So Eli Morgan gets in there, and then the last guy who finishes with double-digit points, Jason Adam, who was a guy I kind of counted on in both of my categories leagues until his arm fell off at the end. Anybody outside the top 6 that you want to discuss here, Sean, before we move on?
Outside of the top 6.
Yeah. Single digit guys here. Single digit guys.
Felix Bautista. There's a lot of guys on this list that can take, and it's funny that Munoz, Duran, and Bautista, all 3 rookies, all right next to each other. Really, that's like almost 5 rookies in a row right there, aside from Soto and Swanson. But yeah, those 3 guys definitely I look to take a step forward. And I don't want to say we see like the passing of the torch, the changing of the guard here, with guys like Kenley and Josh Hader kind of up in the air. That's a weird sentence to say about Josh Hader, but Liam Hendricks is getting older. Kenley Jansen's getting older. Josh Hader is looking like he might be running out of a little bit of gas.
What about
But
Craig Kimbrell?
yeah, Kimbrel as well. I mean, that's definitely that fits in there. But I feel like RP will be in good hands because we just have some absolutely electric guys coming up that all just do insane things, and I'm really looking forward to like the next generation of the great RPs.
Oh yeah, Josh Hader did. I don't remember putting him anywhere on this list, but there he is, Josh Hader, because he got the saves. Okay.
Yep.
Advanced metrics, obviously, this is the same as the other one, as the other starting pitching list. So F4, FIP, XFIP, Sierra, and Edwin Diaz just sweeps. He just sweeps the whole, finishing number one in all four categories. A distant second was Emmanuel Clase. Andres Munoz, who we both like coming into this year. We just didn't know if he was going to be ready to go at the start. Finishes in third with the advanced metrics. Chris Martin, I forgot what team he plays for. Was it the Braves?
He was,
or was it Coldplay?
Oh no, he was on the Braves, but I didn't think he pitched that much this year.
I mean, 48.2 innings pitch is the minimum. That's the qualifications
let me
for
look.
Fangraphs.
Okay, so this year he pitched for 2 teams, so he got traded. I don't know, but yeah, he did have a very good year. 56 innings. I did not realize that.
Yeah, kind of snuck up on us. He didn't get the saves or holds, but he
who did
was
he
able
play
to.
For? Oh, he went to LA.
Ah, well, that.
He went Chicago. He was Chicago because he was a free agent from Atlanta. Chicago signed him. Chicago traded him to LA at the deadline.
Like, I did not even notice him with the Cubs at this whole time. That's how brutal the Cubs were to watch. I'm like, the hell with this team. But I completely forgot that he was with the Cubs. Shame on me.
Yeah.
I'm a fake Cub fan because I wear my White Sox hat.
I'm a fake fan.
Chris Martin definitely, I was just guessing, Chris Martin definitely is the lead singer of Coldplay. So I did not know that. I mean, I did, but I was
an extreme control artist who posted career high strikeout numbers this year. He was really good in 2020 in the shortened season, and when the Braves acquired him in 2019, where he went from Texas to Atlanta. The stuff is okay. 2021 in his full year with Atlanta, the strikeouts were way down, but he's always been really good at limiting walks, which always makes the FIP and the XFIP look a little better. So,
when you say control artist, like I was going to ask you, don't you mean musical artists?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's one of those too.
And you see these highlighted things here, the Andres Munoz, Joan Duran, and you got these categories right here that I'm kind of highlighting here.
Yeah,
advancement. It was all yellow.
Oh my God.
I drew a line.
Oh no. Okay.
I drew a line for you.
Moving on. Oh goodness gracious.
Evan Phillips.
That was bad.
Evan Phillips and Devin Williams. Devin Williams is an old favorite of ours.
Yep.
And Jose Alvarado finishing tied for 5th. So let's play that game again. Now we have 3 players. Let's do start, bench, and cut. Relief pitcher edition. Evan Phillips, Devin Williams, and Jose Alvarado. Who are you starting?
I'm starting Devin Williams.
Who you're benching?
I am benching what was the Evan Phillips.
And then I guess you're cutting Jose Alvarado.
I'm cutting Jose Alvarado. The control, like he did have a good year this year. Don't get me wrong. 14.29. Yeah, I mean he's always had elite stuff like that. The stuff has never been in question, but it's the fact that from his career in Tampa to his first season in Philly last year, he had a 5.64 walks per 9. This year, it was at 4.24. The strikeouts did jump. He's always been a great strikeout guy. I don't expect him to be a 14 per 9 innings guy. But yeah, I just he's kind of in that the Cease camp where I don't trust guys that walk that many batters, especially in relief. Yeah. Oh, the things can really tumble on you in a hurry then.
Yeah, Once again, I agree with you 100%. There's no argument from me. All you guys do is agree with each other. I mean, Devin Williams is awesome, man. Come on.
Yeah, this is going to be his first full year of getting all the save opportunities, more than likely.
Yeah.
Unless Craig Counsell really just wants us to pull out our hair, which I could 100% see doing because that was the one thing.
If anything, he'll get the holds. I mean, he finished top 5 in holds this past season. So if you're in a holds league, go pick up Devin Williams. Joan Duran, who we just mentioned, finishing 8th. Eric Swanson, there's a first mention of your guy there, number 9. Ryan Helsley finishing out the top 10. and AJ Mentor at 11 to round out the double-digit guys there. Look who shows up here on this list, from Reynaldo Lopez down to, looks like it's Trevor Steven. Reynaldo Lopez, number 12, because he finished high in F4 and FIP.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun names on that list there.
But Reynaldo Lopez, failed starting pitcher for the White Sox, and
he's finally figured it out
on the bullpen side.
Yeah.
And he will once in a while do some long relief, mop up duties. So
yeah,
he's good for that. But is he, do I consider him an elite relief pitcher? I don't know yet, but he definitely always had that stuff to be a relief pitcher, a really, really good relief pitcher. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him as a starting pitcher, which would help the White Sox a lot. Hell, he finishes ahead of Liam Hendricks. Buy or sell Reynaldo Lopez being better than Liam Hendricks?
No, but isn't it something
I
to
don't
look?
know, man.
But isn't it something to look at Reynaldo Lopez and see a 1.5 walk per 9?
I can't believe it. That's why I'm asking. I mean, Liam Hendricks looked kind of vulnerable this past year in certain spots. He definitely got exposed in a few games where he did not look like the Liam Hendricks of last year, where he was very dominant. And the only thing he has going for is the saves. But the Sierra, so I guess Sierra thinks that Liam Hendricks could have used better defensive help with the White Sox, which I agree with that sentiment. Daniel Bart, he's not coming back next year on this list, right?
I don't know. Like,
I don't know, man.
He didn't give up like very many home runs, and he has the arm of a closer.
I don't.
He had a sub. I don't think he'll have a sub-2 ERA in Coors again, but I don't know. He could be back.
And of course, Brian Abreu is the one name that gets me excited when I see it on the list. Anybody like that besides Brian Abreu that gets you excited for next year?
Clay Holmes, Alex Vesia, and Trevor Stephan. I liked Vesia when he was in Miami, and Miami just basically gave him up for nothing to the Dodgers. And he had great strikeout numbers as a lefty in like AA, AAA. Trevor Stephan was the Rule 5 guy from the Yankees. He had really good stuff. The ERA was high, but Cleveland was able to keep him on their active roster all year in 21. And then this year he really took that step forward. Good fastball, good splitter. And then Clay Holmes as well, local guy. Got to root for him, even though he's a Yankee. Just got to get that control figured out. Electric sinker, though.
He faltered sometime in the second half. Where
He just completely lost control of the strike zone.
And I know you were big on him having way too high of a ground ball rate. I think
it was like at 82%. Like, that's just
still
silly.
Even if it drops down to 60, we've seen elite relief pitchers get to 60%. That's still pretty damn good. I honestly think injuries and fatigue got the better of him, and he was just being utilized a lot the last couple of years. So I think that's might have caused it. And so we got to the next category, which is the holds plus saves. So it's this column E, holds plus saves. And then what else? The traditional. So again, the 4x5 heroes. So we get that. We add that, and then we add the advanced metric rankings. And again, 66 big points for Edwin Diaz, followed by 53 points for Emmanuel Clase. So 1-2 punch there. And again, usual suspects: Halsey, Phillips, Williams, Minter going up because of the holds there. Andres Munoz at number 7, Chris Martin. I can't think of any other songs from Coldplay. Sorry. Number 8, Joan Duran at number 9, which is about right. He started off really good for the Twins, and then again, just a rookie, so he did falter at the end. Jose Alvarado 10, Swanson, Morgan, Eli Morgan, Liam Hendricks, and Jason Adam finished with double-digit points. So I ask you once again, Mr. Flannery, we mentioned a lot of guys so far, but anybody else on this list? Ooh, it's a big-ass list. Anybody else that you could see who finished in single-digit points here?
Obviously it's weird to see Josh Hader. And while I was just talking about, maybe he's at the end of his rope, we'll see. He's going to be playing on a very talented San Diego Padres team, still there. But also see if Joe Jimenez is still a real thing with Detroit if he gets traded. I know Detroit has, I listened to the new GM, Scott Harris. He said a lot of teams have been calling about his relief pitchers, guys like Joe Jimenez, Gregory Soto, and I believe they had a couple, like Will Vest was pretty solid. But I'm also excited to see Colin Poche finally came back after missing 2 years due to Tommy John in the Rays system. Of course, we know that the Rays are always trying to kill us when we try and figure out where their saves are going to come from. They have so many guys, but every now and then they go into like streaks where it's like one guy for 3 weeks. Maybe Colin Poche gets that chance, but also guys like Jordan Romano, of course, always very high end relief pitcher on a winning team. So we like targeting guys like that as well.
Cionel Perez. So for the Orioles, we mentioned a lot about Felix Bautista and a bunch of other guys, and because obviously they need a very good relief pitching core to kind of offset the terrible starting pitching. I guess we didn't get those Bruce Zimmerman or Jordan Lyle.
Yeah, they must have just missed the list when we were talking about starting pitching. They maybe they didn't hit the minimum. If they'd hit the minimum, they'd be like number 2, number 3.
Well, you know what though, just proves that they weren't that good to begin with. But Cionel Perez just shows up out of nowhere on this list. He got a lot of holds, was able to have a low ERA, and that's a lot of the points are from those two things, holds and ERA. So Cionel Perez getting some love here for the Orioles. Brad Boxberger seems to make this list every single year, it seems like.
Yeah, and he just got let go. He's a free agent, I believe. The what's it called? I mean the Mets right now, the condition the Mets bullpen is in right now, it's basically Edwin Diaz and 6 guys in AAA. No, I'm not kidding. It's Adam Ottavino free agent, Seth Lugo free agent, Trevor Williams free agent. Joely Rodriguez was a free agent signed by the Red Sox. They were all on expiring deals. I think that's why they nailed down Edwin Diaz so quickly before anybody even had a chance. But I expect them to be in on a lot of these guys, both in the trade or in the trade market, as well as, Brad Boxberger doesn't make anybody jump up and say whoopee, but he's slowly, for years he's been good. He was injured, came back, wasn't as good, but in the last 2 years since returning from that injury, he's moved back up. And I want to say he was really good with the Marlins, like posting really good strikeout numbers then.
All he does is produce, man. And I know he's getting up there in age, and that's reasons to be wary about him, but all he does is produce. He's always been on these lists of the in terms of I'll just say it, my spreadsheets. He's always on the spreadsheet, and he unassuming guy in terms of the metrics and numbers and stuff, but he always produces. Paul Sewell's another guy I'm excited for. I drafted him in all my categories leagues last year. He got off to a really bad start, but then he turned things around, and everybody noticed, and I wasn't able to pick him up again. So, but I'll be a little bit more patient with him next season.
I think he'll get a lot of holds next year. I think we really see the Andres Munoz show next year in Seattle.
Good. Tanner Scott.
Oh God.
Lots of strikeouts. That's why he finishes on this list. Top. He got 5 points for the strikeouts. But
I was the biggest Tanner Scott fan there ever was.
I liked him since he was with the Orioles.
But even the Marlins got to the point. 1.61 WHIP. To have a 1.61 WHIP and only a 4.3 ERA, that's actually pretty damn good. He did finish with 20 saves, but by the end of the year, the Marlins were just like. I think Mattingly, Tanner Scott is the reason Don Mattingly stepped down. He's just, I can't deal with this anymore. But you just look at him; he's always just had such elite stuff with the slider and the fastball and the spin rate on everything.
It kind of translates though. Top 10 in strikeouts for relief pitchers.
Oh yeah, 31.1 strikeout percentage, but it comes with a 16% walk rate, which is one of the worst in the league. So
what did those high strikeouts cost you?
Everything.
Including Mattingly's will to live.
Will to manage. He's not going he's not going to off himself yet.
Rafael Montero is a guy that we used to be very impatient of. At least I was with the Mariners, and he gets to the Astros, and lo and behold, you saw him in the playoffs. He was pretty damn dominant, except for that one game. But
he's had the ups and downs as a reliever. Really good in Texas, then bad in Texas, then really good in Seattle, then really good in Houston. I just find it very interesting. He secures a $10 million for 3 years deal. And Tyler Anderson, who I've mentioned his contract already like 3 or 4 times. But how does Tyler Anderson only get $3 million or $2.5 million more than Rafael Montero? Make it make sense, because they were both 3 years, and the difference is like $2.5 million a year.
Last category we got here is the holds and saves. This time I did not include all the traditional numbers. I just wanted to include the strikeouts. And of course, the advanced metrics, because that's all what Felipe is about. And similar results: Diaz, Clase, Williams, Minter, Munoz, Helsley, Martin, Duran, Phillips, Alvarado, Alvarado round out the top 10. with Eric Swanson and Liam Hendricks getting double-digit points. Last guy I want to ask you about, Camilo Doval. Do we still believe in him for next season?
I don't know. Depends on how much we believe in those Kenley Jansen to the Giants rumors. You saw the little picture I sent you, and I posted it in Baseball Life, I believe.
Yes.
Kenley Jansen being the saves reaper, moving from one door. Oh, Will Smith, your saves are mine. Raisel Iglesias, your saves are mine. Could be the same thing to Camilo Doval. We'll see. I want to say I was listening to Rates and Barrels with Eno and DVR, and they were talking about Camilo Doval and that it was something to do like he didn't train that much in the off season, and so he started slow, and it was one of those they're trying to get him to buy in to do more work in the off season. So he kind of, because he got stronger as the year went on, but in the early season he kind of had some struggles.
I did notice that. Yeah,
it's a weird thing. He's still like super young. I mean, he's probably one of the youngest guys on this list.
Hopefully for his sake, he does build up endurance because, like you said, he does have electric stuff, and he becomes the best relief pitcher the Giants have to offer at that point. So the world is his if he wants it. Let's go over to our picks. I'm sorry, you have something else to add?
Oh, I mean, he's so close to just being, Emmanuel Clase. It's right there for him to grab. He's just got to kind of nail it down, figure it out. He did improve last year to this year, which is he didn't pitch as much last year. Only had the 29 games, 3 saves. But ERA came down half a run. WHIP went up a little bit. But still could be just absolutely bonkers for that team if they get it figured out.
So I'm still waiting on Austin, Vince, Henry, Melvin's picks, but we'll go on without them. Surprised that you did not end up with Ryan Helsley. I know you like them a lot, but I guess you like Evan Phillips and Eric Swanson a little bit more.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get them out there. Helsley, I think, is a guy who did have a really good year. And basically, it came down to Helsley or Munoz for me because I knew I was going to add both Phillips and Swanson. And Helsley, I think, to me, when I did watch him, always felt more of the thrower than the pitcher. And I think we kind of saw that come back to kind of bite him in the butt the last bit of the season.
In the playoffs too.
Yeah, in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, well, you can't not argue with the results. I know I made fun of you because you're getting my sloppy seconds. I had him at the beginning of the year, and then he faltered. And of course, you picked them up, and I think you kept them all year long, right? All the way to the championship.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
So that's game recognized game. This might be Ryan Helsley's last time that he ever appears on this list. But of course, at the top of the list, our closers would be Edwin Diaz. Manuel Clase would be the setup guy. And then there's a argument. Oh, well, we both agree that Andres Munoz is your RP4. So we look for big things for him next season as well. Same thing with Devin Williams. Eric Swanson, now we just mentioned he got traded to the Blue Jays. So
yep.
And
I just want to talk a little bit about him. He's got like the solid 3-pitch mix, and like I said, they're like, okay, because even I fell victim to it. It's like I saw Swanson was having a good year, the ERA was really low, but I didn't look really deeply into it just because he was one of those middle relief guys that wasn't really getting any saves. But he had a 34% strikeout rate and a sub 5% walk rate. He was like one of the only pitchers in baseball to do that this year. It was like an insane thing that he did. Didn't give up any home runs. Like I said, it's a multiple pitch mix. It's not just 2. He's got a good splitter. And I think he's really going to fill what Toronto needed was more depth in the bullpen. Jordan Romano was great, but everything else behind him was kind of much to be desired. I think Eric Swanson is a perfect step in that direction for Toronto. The only thing I could see possibly holding him back is he is a guy who before this year did give up a lot of home runs. This year, those came down dramatically. He enters the AL East, which is the bugaboo for our home run suppression. If he can keep those home runs in check, I think Eric Swanson's going to have another great year, and I think he had one of the best underrated relief seasons of the 2022 season.
Of course, Evan Phillips, Dodgers pitcher. I mean, he's pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
And
just a waiver claim. I mean, it's like the Dodgers, the way, and it's why I always laugh when teams get so upset. They say, "Oh, our team just claimed a nobody off of waivers. Why can't they sign the free agent?" Like, because if your team knows what they're doing, that waiver claim pitcher is going to be better and much better value than any relief pitcher that's available on the market. And that's what the Dodgers did with Evan Phillips this year.
And then my guy, the last guy on the list, RP6 for me, is AJ Minter, who's always been a pretty damn good pitcher, a relief pitcher for the Braves. He kind of had some issues with walks and had some down years actually the last couple of seasons, but he bounced back and controlled his walk per nine to below 2.0, double-digit strikeout per nine once again this season, and I believe he was among the league leaders in 34 holds. So that should count for something. 94 strikeouts, which is pretty damn high for a relief pitcher. I mean, shoot, Tanner Scott is able to. We talked about how good Tanner Scott is. Well, the AJ Minter, this is what we were hoping that Tanner Scott would turn into. This AJ Minter lefty kind of pitcher. Really happy to see him bounce back and become the elite relief pitcher that I know he could be. So I added him on my RP6 here.
I've always liked his stuff. It was always the walks. Even in like 2020, he had a great year, 0.083 ERA, but had a walk rate of over 10%. It seems to be up and down with him. He's very reminiscent of a guy that I mentioned when we were looking at your last spreadsheet, AJ Minter and Alex Vesia, both lefties with great stuff. And, relief pitchers are always volatile. AJ Minter is no different. But when AJ Minter is right, I mean, he's a guy who I first noticed in like Out of the Park Baseball, that the simulation that we did the draft for the Rockies in. I noticed him in like 2018, and it was like, or 2017, he was in AAA, but he had like 80 grade stuff and like 35 grade command. And I was like, who is this guy? And he was just so damn good every single time you would sim it out. The control would improve. But he had another great year, and I didn't realize how many holds you had until you mentioned it.
Yeah, he was up there on the list. So congratulations to all those guys who did great in 2022. But as you can see, I went ahead and shared the 2023 too soon ZiPS projections. So we don't even know if who's coming back and who's going to get traded. And we just saw the Blue Jays trade Teoscar Hernandez and to get more bullpen help. But figure we have some fun really quick. Blue Jays, according to this next year's ZiPS projected standings and the AL East, is supposed to take that division, although the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be fighting for a piece of first place as well. As you can see, both are projected to finish with 88 wins. Yankees in third, Red Sox in fourth, and again the Orioles, even with all the good vibes they got in 2022, is not repeatable according to ZiPS projections. Any thoughts on that list there?
I mean, it seems about right. I think the Yankees, once they add Judge, that pushes them back over the Rays. And I'm not completely. I think Baltimore signs a few arms this year that are actually palatable to you, Felipe. I know that's not their goal to be palatable to the whims of Felipe and Mauricio, but I could see them getting Taijuan Walker. I could see them signing some of those other free agent, not like the crazy good ones, but just enough depth to really, solidify that team and push them in the right direction. And if I could just find another starting pitcher, because there was one that I had looked and I can't remember who it was. It was Taijuan and
Tyler Anderson.
Tyler Anderson already got signed.
Carlos Rodon.
So Andrew Heaney hasn't signed. He declined the qualifying offer, but like he'd be a name for them.
Ross Stripling.
I don't know. Like I could see them. There's not as many arms as I thought that were available. Jameson Taillon, like
Jacob deGrom to the Orioles.
Oh no. That's I can just tell you that won't happen.
You saw Andrew Heaney, you mentioned him, Chris Bassett, that
Corey Kluber, like guys that have experience in the AL East.
Nate Eovaldi.
That makes too much sense.
Yeah,
that makes too much. They're just going to sign all the AL East retreads. So they can get an entire rotation of Corey Kluber, Taijuan Walker, Jameson Taillon, and who was the guy you just mentioned?
I don't know, but those three
Nate Eovaldi.
3 or 4 names you just mentioned, that should be good enough for 83 wins next season. So.
With that, you could sneak into a wild card.
All right, and you know how much I love the number 83. So, moving on to the Central. Speaking of 83 wins, the Guardians are not even projected to get to that number. They're projected to go 82 and 80, but still be good enough to win the division. Followed by the Twins, the White Sox, the Royals, and the Tigers. I don't know, man. Tigers, they can't be that well. Maybe they could be that bad. I mean, the bullpen's good, but it wasn't Orioles good.
I think they're tearing down. New GM.
They're already torn down.
I know. I think it's about to get worse. They were building back up. A lot of people thought that this was the year that they were going to take a step forward with Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. I think that's. No.
I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know how you could tear down. You're already stripped down.
It's a whole new office. I mean, new GM that they brought in.
I mean, I get it. So you sign a bunch of veterans to kind of complement the young guys, right? I get that, but it clearly wasn't enough. But obviously, it was all to spotlight the Riley Greens and Spencer Torkelsons of that organization. It's just mind-boggling because you still had to go through Tariq Skubal on your rotation, Matt Manning, Casey Mize, and all those guys are hurt. Most of them are either hurt or inconsistent. But still, I mean, you're already torn down. I mean, I just fail to see how much worse it can get for the.
Like I said, the pieces from the last rebuild, aside from maybe Green, Torkelson, and one of the arms, I think they're all available.
What a mess. Royals should be better. I don't know if they could be better than the White Sox, because the White Sox still have a bunch of veterans on that team, and it all depends.
I think it depends on pitching
and their health as well. Their health, the bullpen turned out to be good, and that's what happens when you actually go out there and spend and bolster that depth. I wish they could have done the same thing for their position players and their starting rotation. There's no more Jose Abreu though, which is a good and bad thing. Good because now you have an extra position to DH Eloy Jimenez, but now you don't have a first baseman.
Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn.
Oh God. Anyway.
Actually, you can just fill that roster spot by extending Laurie Garcia. Bring him back.
All right, let's not do that. I think the Twins might be that might be an undersell that they're doing here with the ZiPS projections. I've always liked the Twins. I feel like they could be a lot better than this, 81 wins, and give the Guardians, who just seem to poof pitchers out of nowhere, as we mentioned. Yeah. I think the Twins can do the same thing. They're like a poor man's Cleveland. And that I mean, we're talking about real poor, dirt poor.
And Kenta Maeda's back next year.
Yeah, I mean that's a solid, and they still got some decent prospects coming up. The Twins.
Yeah, that's kind of my only problem with them is I like a lot of their the starting lineup and the starting rotation. I like, and then you look at their bench and then the depths and the minors, and you're like, oh God, everything has to go right. And nothing ever goes 100% right for the Twins. Right.
Because I was going to say, I do like some of the Twins prospects that are coming up, but the Guardians are on another level. And I mean, they just traded away Nolan Jones, who was a very highly touted prospect with a lot of hype.
Well, I thought that was actually a good move.
I'm just saying that's how much depth they have. It's we don't need this Nolan Jones guy.
And that's why they always finish ahead of the other teams in the Central, because they have depth.
And plus, they got the best manager in Terry Francona, whereas the White Sox decided to get the best manager from 1991. So, well, I'm glad those days are gone, right? So let's move on to the AL West. As you can see, Dan Z, that's his name, right? Zimbrowski, whatever.
Dan Zimbrowski.
He says, it's Angels time. Okay, maybe not really, but hey, look at that. They're right there toe-to-toe with the Seattle Mariners for tie for second place. Obviously, the Astros are the class of that division for at least for another year. Rangers are projected to get 80 wins, probably because a team with Marcus Semien and Corey Seager cannot be that bad. And, of course, the A's. The A's might be even worse than the Tigers.
Oh, they're going to be worse than 74 wins. There's no way. I don't think they touch 70 wins.
I don't think so either. It just depends on a lot of things, but they're.
I mean, maybe if the young pitching, the JP Sears and the Waldichucks are actually good, that's asking a lot though. The offense is going to be so bad.
It's putridly bad. I mean, it's almost Orioles bad. But the Texas Rangers, they're making a lot of moves this offseason. We just talked about Eric Swanson. Eric Swanson was a Rangers farmhand for a long time. They could use a guy like him right now. Angels. I mean, with Tyler Anderson, that's still not enough, and we don't know if he can stay healthy because I don't. Anytime these Angels sign these free agents, it's always a bad idea. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe Mike Trout can stay healthy for a full season and show, like we mentioned, maybe Shohei Ohtani can pitch every 5 days as opposed to every 6 days.
Yeah, right. As of right now, Roster Resource has the Angels as a 5-man rotation.
Well, we'll see. It's
But
still a young offseason.
Yeah.
They might get Martin Perez. Oh no, Martin Perez resigned. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sean Manaea.
he resigned.
They'll get Sean Manaea just so they can stay a 6-man rotation.
Oh God! Why does that actually sound like it's gonna happen?
I'm telling you, man, I've known this team for a long time.
It's the Angels, man. It's just the Angels. It's the shit they do.
Yeah, we're talking about if the Orioles get some of these AL East guys, and then for the Angels, well, the Angels can get Sean Manaea and Zach Eflin and Kyle Gibson.
Oh God!
Michael Wacha, Angels.
Oh God! It's funny because it's true. Like
and then Drew Smiley to be a long relief pitcher just because.
Oh, yeah. The swing man. The swing man.
Or Matthew Boyd. Speaking of swing man. All right. To the NL East, the Braves are the class of the division according to ZiPS. New York Mets, I think all the free agents you mentioned. And then the Phillies kind of showing that they do have some resurgence in them. Mets and Phillies are tied for second. Marlins on the back of Sandy Alcantara will finish in fourth. And the Nationals, I don't know, man. I believe I believe a lot more in the Nationals than I do in the A's. So, Nationals 67 wins next year, apparently.
I don't know. I might take Oakland. I think Oakland wins more games than Washington.
I don't see it. I mean,
like who's the Nationals' best player? CJ Abrams.
It was Juan Soto. No.
I was like, wait, he's not on the team.
He'll always be on the heart. Steven Strasburg is the best player on the Nationals.
He's the best player on their IL.
I just the A's are just so stripped down. I mean, they're counting on guys who should be playing in the Mexican League, let alone in Major League Baseball.
Well, it's like to me, at least to me, they have like some of the guys that were top prospects. That
the A's,
like, yeah.
I gotta see.
I'm not even like a Pache fan, but Langoliers, Pache, like they're definitely going for a type.
Yeah, failed prospects type, right? Okay, so Tony Kemp, no, again, he should be in the Mexican League. Sean Murphy's gone.
Don't disrespect Tony Kemp like that.
He's Laurie Garcia. If you weren't a switch, hitter.
He's much better than Laurie Garcia.
They're the same guy. I can't tell him apart.
Seth
Brown is he should be a pinch hitter. Ramon Laureano is not a centerpiece. He's nothing. And he's a PED user, but without the production. Who the hell is Vamel Machine?
Oh, the machine. Switch hitter, awesome plate discipline. Can't hit a lick.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Looks more like mechanical as opposed to machine. Shane Langoliers, I'll give you that. Highly touted catcher. I'll give you that. Connor Capel, what the hell is that?
He actually was really good. When the Mets went out there and played him right at the end of the year, they got him off of waivers from St. Louis.
Right.
He was having a really good year in AAA. Oh, not like really good, but pretty good for AAA. And he came over and he ended up hitting 308, 356, 519 in the bigs and 60 plate appearances. Only 60 plate appearances, but like it was an interesting piece.
You said it right there. So he's gonna get exposed, and the A's are just gonna go in this.
You know what I just found? You know what I just realized?
What?
The A's will be your new Orioles.
Oh yeah.
As the Orioles get better, your loathing and dislike will transfer from them to the A's.
It just doesn't make sense. This is so awful. It's really bad. Shea Langoliers is not Adley Rutschman. And Christian Pache just sucks. I mean,
well, when I look at this lineup, it's a really good defensive team, and they're going to get a haul for Sean Murphy. Like I said, I don't know. Like it's a weird build, but
thumbs down.
Like I said, I'm not volunteering myself to do it. I'm not volunteering myself for it, but
you're getting under my skin, Sean. That's the problem. You're getting
pitch to contact, and all of those guys: Allen, Pache, Langoliers, Laureano. They're all good defensive players.
Yeah, I'll give you that, but You got
What?
hit. You got to be able to hit.
No. This is going to be an '80s Cardinals. We're going to get out there, slap the ball, and run.
80s.
That's what they're going for right
Let's
here.
play 80s baseball in 2022.
Billy Bean on his way out the door is rewinding the clock and going to say, "This is the new Moneyball." Screw on base percentage. These guys can't get on base. It's
Screw
all about
on base percentage.
It's all about defense. That's what he's going to do.
Says the team that created the whole we need to focus on base percentage.
Yeah, and they also finished with like a sub 300 on base as a team, I believe. Last year.
Here are the top 10
Yep.
teams in DRS fielding, right? Yankees, Dodgers, Guardians, Cardinals, Astros, Diamondbacks, Brewers, Blue Jays, Orioles, Mariners. I would say that the Orioles was the only team that did not have their roster all completed, but they still had some guys. And Adley Rutschman, we're seeing that he's an uber prospect. And like I said, they did have some decent guys on that team that I would even admit are actual major league baseball players. The A's don't have any of that. And it's going to take a miracle for the A's to be relevant like the Orioles were last year. So, but if the argument
I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that'll happen.
But if the argument is, are they better than the Nationals?
I think they're better than the Nationals.
All right, well, let's take a look at the Nationals. All right, so we got Lane Thomas, who he every time you discount him, all he does is do enough to make you believe in him. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. CJ Abrams is a very exciting prospect, definitely better than Pache. Joey Meneses was a guy we talked about last year at the end. He kind of, he's that who's the equivalent of that one guy you were bragging about.
Oh, Frank Schwindel, or no, Capel.
Machine, or was it Capel?
Machine.
No, Connor Capel. You're right, Connor Capel. Joey Meneses is the Connor Capel of the Nationals. I see your Shea Langoliers, and I give you Kyber Ruiz.
Wash.
Yeah, it's a wash. They're the same player as far as I'm concerned. Right. Luis Garcia. So
better than Tony Kemp.
And you were talking about, well, maybe this failed prospect for the A's might turn into something good. Same thing with Luis Garcia. Luis Garcia, failed Nationals prospect. Maybe he'll be turning into something next year. Vargas, 31-year-old. We could skip him. Carter.
Him and the Machine are a wash.
Okay, Carter Keyboom. We still have.
Is he a thing? I thought he's done. He's done.
He's a DH at
the
moment. One of these key booms is going to work out for the Nationals.
No, they're never going to work out.
One of them. Josh Palacios, he's nothing good. But Victor Robles, he's basically Christian Pache.
Yeah, that's your comp there is Robles versus Pache.
And most importantly for you, the Nationals have Lucius Fox on the bench, so that's a difference.
Hey, my boy.
Josiah Gray, who is maybe he's not an ace, but he definitely showed some flashes of being a low, very bottom of the barrel ace type pitcher.
He did give up like 35 home runs this year
and a 5 ERA, but I don't know, man. Cole Irvin doesn't do anything for me for the A's. Paul Blackburn doesn't do anything for me.
This is their only redeeming hope that they could be better than the A's, is having Gray, Cavalli, and Gore actually form a solid 1-2-3 in some sort of order. But
telling you, man,
I think that the National League East will feast on them in that ballpark and in the National League East ballparks than the A's pitchers in their ballpark.
Listen, man, they got to see Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. All right. They still got to do battle with that.
Yeah, but they have to. They get to play half their games in the O.co shitty Coliseum. So,
CJ, a couple of veteran pitchers here. CJ Edwards was the Nationals for now, and our guy, everybody's guy at one point, Hunter
Harvey. Yep, still alive.
Let's see. Okay, so and then Steven Strasburg will one day come back.
No,
I believe in it. I believe in it. Watch. Don't believe me, just watch.
Oh, Tanner Rainey had Tommy John?
Yep, surprise.
Oh, I didn't know that. And I remember when he got hurt and then he was just kind of gone. I didn't know he had Tommy John.
And you know who might be called up next year, sooner rather than later? Robert Hassel III, prospect difference maker. I rest my case. The A's don't have anything like that on their system. Not yet. Not now, at least. Not yet, at least. No, I'm not believing in a catcher. Number 43 ranked Tyler Soderstrom, lefty, 21-year-old. No, I'm not.
I like Soderstrom. TBH.
I'll pass. I don't believe in catchers. And number 92, Luis Medina, who's the starting pitcher. Oh, that's the guy from the Yankees.
How did Robert Hassel do in the AFL this year?
Good question.
He sucked. 7 plate appearances, 1 hit.
Yeah, he sucked after 7 plate appearances.
There you go.
Way to go. Way to go. Cardinals,
Hey,
91 wins.
He was no Cooper Hummel, and who in the I didn't realize he even went to the AFL, but he did after he got traded. And Cooper Hummel hit 471, 591, 706.
Oh, well, it's always easier the third
Yeah.
time around, isn't it, Sean?
This was his second time in the AFL. Thank you very much.
Second time's easier. Okay. Was he 26 years old already? Cooper Hummel?
Yeah, 27.
Why is he in the all right? Why is he Michael Jordan of Arizona Fall League players? NL Central, St. Louis Cardinals to win 91 games. That's about right. I know it's not a off balance schedule like it was in the past, but that's about right. Brewers, they need to do a lot of things to catch up to the Cardinals.
You see, I don't know. I think I like them going forward in the outfield. I like them getting rid of Renfroe. I'm not sure about the package they got back, but whenever they get off or get 3 arms back like that, it's like one of them usually ends up pretty good. But they have a lot of depth in the outfield in the high minors. Sal Frelick, Joey Weimer, and then one of the top prospects in all of baseball, Jackson Churio, is probably a year away at this point. So they could have like a little youth offensive movement. Esteri, Ruiz from last year. I don't know. I kind of like if the Brewers just don't decide to tank and trade Burns or Woodruff or do something stupid. I like their chances this year. I think the Cardinals take a step back, honestly.
I don't know, man. I think the Cardinals are just they're outmaneuvering the Brewers in every which way, and it's so much that David Stearns decided to just step down, which he'll always be my guy, David Stearns.
Yeah,
he saved the NBA. No, Cubs, Reds, and Pirates have similar records. They're both projected to win more than 70, but less than 75 wins. I think the Reds are going to be the more exciting team next season.
Yep. The
Cubs, a lot of their better players are way down the farm system. I know that Dan Z mentions that the Cubs are making noise about spending this winter. I'll believe it when I see it. If you're the Cubs, why would you spend?
To me right now, the Reds and the Pirates are, well, at least the Reds are probably better set up going forward than the Cubs right now.
Yeah, because the Pirates do have some players that we need to keep an eye on. In their farm system
see how Mitch Keller goes forward again this year. Andy Rodriguez, I think, could, theoretically break camp with the team. And I made that post about him in Baseball Life in like June or July. And after I made that post, he ended up getting all the way up to, I think, AAA. And he had just gotten promoted to A-ball at that point. And the one the Mets let get away, Andy Rodriguez.
Well, speaking of catchers, the Pirates still have Henry Davis, who's in the Arizona Fall League at the moment. Wait, that already ended, right? The Arizona Fall League.
That's done. That's done.
And they still had G1 Bay, who got called up last year very late, but he might start the year in the big league club, and that's a guy I have.
Especially now that they let go of Hoy Park.
Oh yeah, so they'll just get the other Korean guy. Wait, is Hoy Park Korean? I forgot. I think
he was.
Well, G1 Bay is waiting in the wings, but so is Nick Gonzalez, who was a former first-round pick for that team, and he's going to be starting in AAA. You might see him get called up soon. Yeah. Who else is on there? Some guy named Leover Peguero.
Yeah, shortstop. He actually debuted. He played I think 1 game for the Pirates. It was like they had somebody go down with COVID and they didn't have a shortstop on the roster, and he was in AA or high A at the time. He was already on the 40-man, and he actually happened to be playing only an hour away at a visiting team's ballpark, and so they called him up just to have him on the roster, and then they sent him back down.
And then you still got Travis Swaggerty, who's been a mainstay on the prospect list for the Pirates. 25-year-old.
He debuted this year.
So he might still be a thing. We'll see if he gets a little bit more time to redeem himself, but I know it's a kind of a late blooming thing, but still.
I think it depends on what they end up doing this year trade wise, if they end up moving Brian Reynolds, or theoretically they could trade Mitch Keller. I think that'll signal what they're trying to do this year. And they're definitely not trying to win, right. But if they're trying to set themselves up for the next 3 to 5 years, they're probably best off trading Brian Reynolds and Mitch Keller, which would suck for this year, but they're not that far away. Like you said, they got a lot of interesting names that might not necessarily be popping up on big time list, but they're all kind of have the same ETA, which shows at least some sort of planning in terms of going forward and building a new team basically at the same time.
For the pitchers, Luis Ortiz, Quinn Priester, who I've been keeping an eye on for a while now. There's other pitchers here. Let me see if I can find them.
Oviedo that they picked up from the Cardinals, really live arm, just has to work on the control.
I thought there was other names here. Maybe they have been called up, or maybe they just kind of fizzled out. But I could have sworn there were other names.
Roansy Contreras.
That's him.
Yeah, the former Yankee guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that did not turn out too well. But
I mean, he wasn't bad. It just he wasn't great.
That's the problem.
I think that's you. If you're making your debut and you just somehow tread water, I think that's a win.
No, I expect great things from all these highly touted.
Everyone should be Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna Jr. at 19 years old.
Damn right.
If they can do it, why can't you?
I'm what am I, the Braves who just have the luxury to wait 2 or 3 years to see if Kyle Wright becomes a thing? I don't think so. Life's too short, man. Dodgers, not 100 wins, but 91 wins. That's respectable. Padres at 87, Giants at 83. But so did the Diamondbacks. So we did not see the big push from the Diamondbacks on this list, but that's pretty impressive still. And you never know, a couple of stolen wins here and there. Suddenly the Diamondbacks might look like a playoff team next year. And then dead last, probably the worst run organization, the Colorado Rockies.
Right. That's the Rockies.
Yeah, tap the Rockies. No, thank you. Yeah, so I like the Diamondbacks. The Giants, I'm not too sure about them. So we might see them fall to 4th place and the Diamondbacks sneak into 3rd. No. And if the Padres truly falter, you never know, man. Diamondbacks like 2nd.
Well, like I said, if the Padres show any sort of like major faltering, I mean, we got to remember who that GM is. He's not afraid to just blow it up. And I could possibly see it, like the Josh Hader getting moved, Darvish moved, Snell moved, like just everyone for sale, which would be terrible because they traded all of their top prospects in the last 2 years.
Well, that's all they do is trade their top prospects, and they're okay with the Hunter Renfros of the world leaving. I got to ask you this though, man. If the Padres falter like after like 25 or 30 games, did they fire their general manager?
I don't think so. He's AJ Preller.
Yeah, thank you.
He survived doing this really twice already, so I think he's good.
All right, well, that's a good place to stop. That we covered everything that we could for today. Big Hall of Fame show. Hopefully tomorrow evening. I still got to work on that spreadsheet, but I'm hoping to get that done. And that one should be with myself, Austin, and Kevin Miller. So it'll be the first time I do a show with Kevin. The last time he was with Austin, I thought he did pretty good. So it looks like he has a lot of historical insight for the game of baseball. So I look forward to discussing that with him and Austin tomorrow. Yep. Sean, any last words from you about anything about today?
No, just looking forward. We got the winter meetings that start next week. Rule 5 draft, which is always, super fun for someone like me. But we're just we're getting there.
All right, man. Well, thanks for tuning in. For Felipe. No, I am Felipe. For Sean, I am Felipe. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one, everybody.
Adios, guys.